All right, we're on chapter 26 of A Course in Miracles. This chapter is called The Transition, and today we will be reading section 3, The Borderland. I just want to note that this section is the title is the same as in Helen's original handwritten notes. And the last section, however, was different. The last section was called many forms, one correction in the third edition put out by the Foundation for Inner Peace, but the original was not called that. It was called Release from Every Problem. So they're both good titles. I like many forms, one correction. I think that's probably a nicer, from a literary perspective, I think it's a better title. But all right, the Borderland. Here we go. Complexity is not of God. How could it be when all he knows is one? He knows of one creation, one reality, one truth, and but one sun. Nothing conflicts with oneness. How then could there be complexity in him? What is there to decide? For it is conflict that makes choice possible. The truth is simple. It is one without an opposite. And how could strife enter in its simple presence and bring complexity where oneness is? The truth makes no decisions, for there is nothing to decide between. And only if there were could choosing be a necessary step in the advance toward oneness. What is everything leaves room for nothing else. Yet is this magnitude beyond the scope of this curriculum. Nor is it necessary we dwell on anything that cannot be immediately grasped. There is a borderland of thought that stands between this world and heaven. It is not a place, and when you reach it is apart from time. Here is the meeting place where thoughts are brought together, where conflicting values meet and all illusions are laid down beside the truth, where they are judged to be untrue. This borderland is just beyond the gate of heaven. Here is every thought made pure and wholly simple. Here is sin denied, and everything that is received instead. This is the journey's end. We have referred to it as the real world. And yet there is a contradiction here in that the words imply a limited reality, a partial truth, a segment of the universe made true. This is because knowledge makes no attack upon perception. They are brought together, and only one continues past the gate where oneness is. Salvation is a borderland where place and time and choice have meaning still. And yet it can be seen that they are temporary, out of place, and every choice has been already made. Nothing the Son of God believes can be destroyed. But what is truth to him must be brought to the last comparison that he will ever make, the last evaluation that will be possible, the final judgment upon this world. It is the judgment of the truth upon illusion, of knowledge on perception. It has no meaning and does not exist. This is not your decision. It is but a simple statement of a simple fact. But in this world there are no simple facts, because what is the same and what is different remain unclear. The one essential thing to make a choice at all is this distinction. And herein lies the difference between the worlds. In this one, choice is made impossible. In the real world is choosing simplified. Salvation stops just short of heaven, for only perception needs salvation. Heaven was never lost and so cannot be saved. Yet who can make a choice between the wish for heaven and the wish for hell unless he recognizes they are not the same? This difference is the learning goal this course has set. It will not go beyond this aim. Its only purpose is to teach what is the same and what is different, leaving room to make the only choice that can be made. There is no basis for a choice in this complex and overcomplicated world. For no one understands what is the same and seems to choose where no choice really is. The real world is the area of choice made real, not in the outcome, but in the perception of alternatives for choice. That there is choice is an illusion, yet within this one lies the undoing of every illusion, not accepting this. Is not this like your special function, where the separation is undone by change of purpose in what once was specialness and now is union? All illusions are but one. And in this, in the recognition, this is so, lies the ability to give up all attempts to choose between them and to make them different. How simple is the choice between two things so clearly unalike? There is no conflict here. No sacrifice is possible in the relinquishment of an illusion recognized as such. Where all reality has been withdrawn from what was never true, can it be hard to give it up and choose what must be true? And that's the end of this section. The Borderland. This is not easy to understand. Granted, that's why we're doing this. One reason why we're doing this is to shed a little light, to bring a mirrored reflection to the subject, to try to get at together what this all means. Obviously, the name, the Borderland. What is Jesus talking about? What is the Borderland? Well, we have this world, which is the world of perception. You know, Jesus, from the very beginning, Jesus lays out certain things in the Course. This is why, you know, you ever go to if you went to college, you know, you take a course, right? Do you ever have the experience of you're taking the course, the teacher starts with a kind of an introductory lecture, and you're kind of like, that's good, that's right. you're taking notes, and but maybe you didn't really completely understand certain things that the professor was saying the first day, right? But then the professor, the next lectures to come are building on that initial lecture, that introductory lecture, and the professor is assuming that you went home and you looked at your notes, you did some of the readings, and the professor is now building upon what you read before. But in this scenario, which I think some of us have had, myself included, we start to get lost because we're like, I don't understand where, suddenly you've gotten very deep. And if you did not follow that introductory lecture, you will not grasp what is coming later. So I think that's the way it is with the Course, is that it's hard to pick up the Course just like in the middle. It's hard to I think you have to really start from the beginning and understand the basic premises. So one basic premise is the difference between perception and knowledge. Right? This world is the world of perception, which means there's subject and object. Right? There's a perceiver, which generally is me, right? And there is an object, meaning you, or something else that seems to be outside of myself. And in the world of perception, there is, according to the Course, there is wrong-minded perception and right-minded perception. Wrong-minded perception is when we see according to the ego, the ego's judgment, the ego's vision, or the ego's thought system. And right-minded perception is where when we make choices based on the Holy Spirit's vision, and you could call that reasonable, reasonable choices, reasonable ways of seeing, and seeing that's in line with the idea that there is no separation, that there is only oneness, and we are all in the same boat. We're all part of the sonship. We're all trying to find our way home. Strangers on the bus trying to find our way home. That's the world of perception, right? We can align our perception, Jesus says from early on, we can align our perception more and more with the Holy Spirit's vision, which is basically based in the atonement principle, which is that separation from God is impossible and never happened, right? But we are still in the world of perception, right? Until we return home, which would be the realm of knowledge, you could say with a capital K, or gnosis. The Course does not use the word gnosis, but in a sense, that's what knowledge means here. But it's also knowledge, meaning returning to your original oneness, right? And Jesus says right here, from the very beginning of this passage, he says, complexity is not of God. How could it be when all he knows is one? He uses the word knows, right? God is one. God only knows one. He knows of one creation, one reality, one truth, and but one Son. It's a very clear statement right there, of oneness. Nothing conflicts with oneness. How then could there be complexity in him? What is there to decide? For it is conflict that makes choice possible. So in other words, in that realm of knowledge, as opposed to perception, choice is impossible, right? There is no choice. And that's a good thing, because as Jesus says, in the world of perception, things are very unclear, right? In the realm of God, everything is very clear. There's only oneness, right? But let's read on. What is there to decide? For it is conflict that makes choice possible. The truth is simple. It is one without an opposite. Okay, that echoes the Upanishads, actually. The Upanishads say God is one without a second. Right? It says that a number of times in the Upanishad. God is one without a second. I'm not remembering the Sanskrit right now, but it's a famous line in the Upanishads. So here Jesus is saying something very similar. It is one without an opposite. The truth is simple. It is one without an opposite. Or God is one without a second. Right? And how could strife enter in its simple presence and bring complexity where oneness is? The truth makes no decisions, for there is nothing to decide between. And only if there were, could choosing be a necessary step in the advance toward oneness. What is everything leaves room for nothing else. Yet is this magnitude beyond the scope of this curriculum. Okay, so this is another point that Jesus made early on from the very introduction of the Course, which is that what is, in this world, love has an opposite, which is fear. But love in the realm of God, the love of God, you could say, has no opposite. There is no opposite. But being where we are right now, which is in the world of perception, or the realm of perception, we cannot fully understand that. And the Course is not aiming to try to tell us what that is, because words cannot express what that is. Words can only bring us to this borderland. Right? Words can only bring us to this point, this transitional point where we realize that the only real choice is for the love of God. Nothing else makes any sense. And that would be where we we get to this point called the real world, where we realize there is no other choice, right? There is a choice, but we don't want that choice. We don't want to follow the ego anymore. It leads nowhere. We realize that. We fully realize that. And when we do fully realize that, Jesus says God takes the last step and brings us back to the realm of knowledge, right? We in other words, we transition. That's the name of this chapter. We transition from the realm of perception to the realm of knowledge. And it's a very easy transition. That's another point that Jesus makes early on, is that when you get to that point, the transition is very easy and gentle, right? But if you try to make that transition too soon, it can be very traumatic. Because it's hard. It's hard to put in words. I would say I would put it like this. First of all, we're not ready until we get to that point. Second of all, the ego will go kicking and screaming. The ego moves from suspiciousness to viciousness, as Jesus says. So when we are, that's the problem with trying to destroy the ego or fight the ego or kill your ego. That doesn't work because it's really, the ego will come back just that much stronger. This is really a course in dissolving the ego through making the choice for love. And in the choice, the continual choice that we make for love, the ego is dissolved gradually. It can be quicker than that for sure, but for most of us, it's a gradual process, and we will eventually get to the point where that choice, it becomes crystal clear, right? That there is no real choice. There is a choice, but there is no real choice. So let's read a little bit more. There is a borderland of thought that stands between this world and heaven. It is not a place, and when you reach it, is apart from it. I think it should be when you reach it, it is apart from time. That's why I was stopping before, because I think there might be a typo here. I'm not sure. And when you reach it, is apart from time. Here is the meeting place where thoughts are brought together, where conflicting values meet and all illusions are laid down beside the truth, where they are judged to be untrue. This borderland is just beyond the gate of heaven. That doesn't mean beyond, it means before you get to heaven, right? Before you get to heaven is this borderland. Here is every thought made pure and wholly simple. Here is sin denied and everything that is received instead. This is the journey's end. We have referred to it as the real world. So Jesus has been speaking again and again about the real world, and it's not completely clear what the real world is, and Jesus is now trying to explain what it is a little bit better. And yet there is a contradiction here in that the words imply a limited reality, a partial truth, a segment of the universe made true. This is because knowledge makes no attack upon perception. They are brought together, and only one continues past the gate where oneness is. So in other words, this is where you leave perception, where you leave the world of perception, right? But the two come together for a moment, for a brief moment. Knowledge and perception, there is the understanding that there is something beyond perception. Salvation is a borderland where place and time and choice have meaning still. And yet it can be seen that they are temporary, out of place, and every choice has been already made. All right, so here, this is not easy to understand, right? It's not easy to talk about it. It's not easy to parse, and I'm not claiming that I fully understand it. But I think that the point is that you get to this point where the choice becomes very clear. And, you know, part of the understanding of the Course is that salvation, you know, when we talk about salvation, salvation is only for the world of perception, right? In this world, we think the Son of God, which is us, thinks that we need to be saved, right? But in the realm of knowledge, no, there's no salvation. There's no forgiveness. There's no sin. There's no judgment. There's no punishment. There's no justice, right? There's no anything except that perfect oneness, that perfect love, that perfect wholeness. There is no duality. If there's no duality, then there is no need for choice, right? Nothing the Son of God believes can be destroyed, but what is truth to him must be brought to the last comparison that he will ever make, the last evaluation that will be possible, the final judgment upon this world. That's not a threat. The final judgment is the judgment that the Son of God, in this case, the Son of God makes, which is that the world is unreal, right? And the world is not worthy of the Son of God, because the Son of God's place, so to speak, is in God. It is the judgment of the truth upon illusion, of knowledge on perception. It has no meaning and does not exist. This is not your decision. It is but a simple statement of a simple fact. So in other words, you realize that there is no choice, there is no decision, there is no judgment, right? It's already been made. It's already happened, right? That's the atonement principle. That the atonement, that we have never been apart from God. We have never been apart from God. We are still one with God. So this is not, you give up the idea that there is any personal autonomy. That's an illusion. You give up the idea that there's any personal choice. There is no personal choice. I think this is very important, you know, because I think part of our problem as humans is, you know, these questions of free will and predestination and, you know, questions like, well, is this all already, you know, did God already plan this all out? And if there is, then we don't have free will. But it seems like we do have free will. And, you know, this is the Course's answer to this question. Anyway, this is a long video, and I'm not sure if I have been clear enough in what I've been saying. Maybe we'll circle back. But these are all short passages, and I just made a very long video on a short passage. But the next section is where sin has left, and we'll see you there soon. Thank you.